welcome to the Crafty Tinkerer. I'm Nicole. I would just like to say thank you to those of you who subscribed to my channel and who left me comments and gave me some likes. I really appreciate the support. I today have decided to talk about the pattern, the sweater pattern that I'm going to be using. I've been planning this out. I mentioned last week that I decided to use Strange Brew by Tin Can Knits because it's more of a recipe. They give you 3 different yarn choices: Aran, DK, or sock weight yarn. They give you sizes from newborn all the way to men's 4XL, and they give very good instructions. So for a first sweater project, I thought that would probably be the best pattern to use. They also give you the choice whether you want to start from the top and work your way down, or whether you want to start from the bottom and work your way up. With the bottom up, you can use your sleeves as your swatch to check for your gauge, but that means you have to cast on more stitches in the end, because then you have to go down to the bottom. I do not like casting on, so I have chosen to do the top down version to cast on as few stitches as possible. If I cast on at the bottom, I'm going to end up with a UFO. For those of you who are maybe new to the knitting world or have not heard of a UFO before, it stands for unfinished object. I would probably cast on half the stitches and end up throwing it in a bag and not finishing it, maybe for a couple of years. So top down is the way to go for me. I have also decided that I'm going to make a cardigan. So in the end, what I will do, I'll knit it in the round, but I will add some extra stitches, and then at the end you add a steek. A steek is where you cut your knitting, and then you add some buttons and buttonholes on the side, and then you have a cardigan instead of a pullover sweater. So this will be my first time steeking as well, since obviously I've never done a sweater before. I decided to use sock weight yarn. Originally I was thinking about doing an Aran weight since it's thicker and I could use bigger needles, and so there wouldn't be as many stitches. But the Aran weight yarn that I have in my stash I've never used before. So I have used my Shetland wool for many projects, so many hats. So I've decided that I'm going to stick with the Shetland wool for this project. There are a couple of reasons why I chose to use the Shetland wool. I'm familiar with it, and this project is not a familiar project to me, so at least I will have yarn that I know. And another thing is that I decided to steek, so when I do cut, I can have confidence that my stitches aren't going to go ping, 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 ping all the way, you know, in case I missed securing it in a section. The Shetland wool is really sticky. When I first started knitting my keps, they they were done on 3 double-pointed needles, and then I used a 4th needle. So I was trying to squeeze my stitches onto every needle, and a couple of them would fall off. Now, I discovered end stoppers to, you know, alleviate this issue. And then, of course, I discovered circular knitting needles were much better for the project. My husband bought me a set of metal circular knitting needles for Christmas. So since then I've been using those for my hats. But whenever I would drop a stitch off the end, it was easy to find the next round because it was right there. Sometimes some yarns are a little more slippery, and if you drop a stitch it'll fall down 4 or 5 rows, but the Shetland wool does not. It may go down 1 row, but not usually. It usually stays exactly where you dropped it. Also, the Shetland wool already comes in balls ready to knit. I don't have to wind them into a ball. The two other weights of yarn, the Aran and the DK yarns that I have, they came in skeins that need to be wound into a ball, and I don't have a ball winder right now. So what I do is I take them and I put them around my computer chair, and then I either spin the computer chair around while I'm winding, or I stand up and I wind a ball around the computer chair. So this will save me more time if I just use the Shetland wool. It's fingering weight, which, you know, means I do have to cast on more stitches than I would have with the Aran or the DK, but in the end I think it's going to be worth it. Another positive thing is that I have so many colors. I have thousands and thousands of yards worth of Jamieson and Smith and Jamieson's of Shetland, and so I have many options. I don't know how many colors exactly I have, but the other day I set out all the colors that I'm considering using. I have some light browns and dark browns, light grays and dark grays, and then I have an assortment of colors. So I'm thinking that I'll probably use the brown and the gray the most, and then add pops of color throughout the sweater. Instead of just doing a yoke, though, like Strange Brew suggests, I've decided that I'm going to do the whole sweater in Fair Isle. As I mentioned last week in my last video, I love knitting Fair Isle. It's really, it makes my projects more interesting to me. And so I can't imagine knitting the rest of the sweater in one color in sock weight or fingering weight yarn. I, again, would have a UFO. So using the color work is definitely going to help me continue on, make it interesting. I haven't picked any of the patterns out yet that I'm going to use, or motifs, but I plan to do that in the next day or so. Now, my other dilemma is that I have the general colors that I want to use, but I'm not sure that I want to actually draw up and plan out the colors that will go, you know, in the sweater. With my hats, I cast on the ribbing and then I decide which colors to use from there. So I have to see with my sweater what happens. Once I do probably 5 or 6 patterns, then I'll probably repeat those, so you know it'll look fairly uniform. But I don't know yet. I just have to wait and see what inspires me while I'm doing this sweater. I know that sounds pretty funny, but it's how I like to knit. I really like to choose as I go along to see, you know, how the colors come out. So I think I'll choose as I go along and see how it comes out. Usually my best hats are that way. If I pick my colors ahead of time, sometimes I really don't like them. I tried it with one hat that I did, and I ended up not liking the color combination together. So I ripped it back and used other colors. So from then on, you know, I decided that I would just choose as I go along. I don't know how many of you do that. If you do, please leave a comment. It would be nice to know that I am not alone in doing that. Also, if you've ever done a steek before and would like to give me some advice, I would appreciate it. That is one thing I'm pretty nervous about with this project. The other thing that is making me nervous is, like, you know, I said last week when I did socks, the heel was what prevented me from doing socks for so long. And I have not done a sweater because I'm nervous about joining the yoke and the body, you know, having to do that. I know that I've read that going from the top down is a little bit easier than going from the bottom up. So that's another factor that went into choosing that version of this sweater. But honestly, the casting on of fewer stitches is the #1 reason why I would choose a top-down sweater. So if you would like to follow along and receive email notifications for my next video. Next week I am planning to show you the motifs I've chosen for my sweater, and hopefully I will have cast on the neckline at least. So there's a little button down here with my icon. You can click it and subscribe. If you have enjoyed watching this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you have any advice on steeking, or if you'd like to tell me that you also choose your colors as you go when you're doing a knitting project, please let me know and feel free to leave a comment. Thank you. Have a good day.